Why Aqua Teen? You seem way older than
I'm well into my late 40s.
So anyway, I've always had a soft spot for Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I know people remember this era of Adult Swim with sort of mixed opinions, but there was always something about Aqua Teen that I admire how they managed to strip away a lot of the exposition and setup, try and get as much nonsense into a plot as possible.
Call upon the power of Grayskull.
Don't do this.
Dunk on Meatball. Oh!
Whoa, look at your leg, dude. That is graphic and funny.
And oftentimes, the exposition of what was happening in a given episode at the end was the punchline because of just all the insane characters that could show up. Also, the delivery of the voice actors does a lot of the lifting, as it should in sort of some of the lower budget productions at the time.
Got my hand. Need my help. Oh!
Order of a hot dog! Order of an igloo! Don't respond to hot dogs or igloos!
I'm trying to think if there were a lot of copycats that tried to sort of copy the napkin scribbles that took the place of a formula that Aqua Teen had, and I don't think any of them really sticked. And then, of course, you've got the rise of other things like, Metalocalypse, stuff that took the formula of limited animation and pushed it in certain areas.
Oh, look at these moop flops!
It was definitely a series of its times that used both the technology and the limited budget to their fullest. And I think we can all appreciate that. And so when they said they were announcing a new movie, I was, interested in it. And I looked forward to it until I forgot about it, until this very moment.
See you later.
So this is the first of Adult Swim's straight-to-video movies that they're going to release. They just dropped the trailer for Doomstar, the Metalocalypse movie, which I thought they destroyed the Doomstar. I don't know. There's that. And then of course the Untaintable Blood of the Baboon or something like that. That's the Venture Brothers movie, which everyone's hyped for that. This is sort of like a good yeah, get hyped. It's Aqua Teen. It's the show that was always on and that you got a couple laughs out of. Even if you weren't a big fan, I think at least some people appreciate some of the Aqua Teen stuff. And then Venture Brothers for the peak, and then maybe a slow, a good bookend for Metalocalypse. First thing that strikes me about this movie is that the animation is really smooth and fluid in places. They do a lot of extra stuff with the animation because they can. I mean, honestly, the technology has just gotten more and more advanced. I'm thinking back to the first Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie, and even then that was mostly recycled animation. Here they recycle a lot. It's definitely got the feeling of the animated series, except you can totally tell that technology has gotten better. And, they may have gotten a little bit of a bump in funding. Not much, though. WB is currently on fire. Pour one out for the old Cartoon Network studios. Also, they have a real female cast.
Is that really a real name? Phoenix? Like the bird that arose from the ashes?
No, like the capital of Arizona.
Okay, so the story is basically Frylock finally gets sick of living with a piece of shit milkshake and a sort of sentient wad of meat that he has to take care of. It's actually kind of really sad, the breakup between him and Meatwad. It feels like he's really, really, really just broken. I wouldn't expect the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie to actually pull at my heartstrings, but here we are.
Oh man, I bet it's cold out there.
Fire! Fire! Fire!
Speaking of which, yeah, the movie is basically dedicated to Frylock and his journey, a career for himself in the IT industry. He works for the equivalent of Amazon and just rises up the ranks.
You down in IT riding away?
Been there a few months, been crushing it, if I say so myself.
Well, now you're up here with me, making me taller. Let me show you the operation.
The other two characters, Shake and Meatwad, really don't have a lot to do. There's this cute little thing with Meatwad working at a kennel as a volunteer, but he's actually just crashing there and living there until they finally kick him out.
Our charity only extends so far.
How far? That's pretty far.
Good luck, Meatwad! Please do not come back.
His storyline like terminates. They forget about him for like 20 minutes. The opening is pretty cool and pretty straightforward. It's basically it's an alien space escape set piece with Carl being taken over by John Carpenter's The Thing, sorta, kinda. And it's a pretty good setup. And of course, it's entirely a fabrication of Shake's mind, in which he depicts himself as a noble hero. He's actually just bumming around, and then he finally crashes over at Carl's house.
Feel this, bro? With me here, it's a hang.
All right.
Carl has his own little plot in that he's excited about selling his house.
Tell you what, I'm gonna make you a generous offer. Take this off your hands.
So you can flip it?
Okay, all right, you got me. I'm holding out too. Slap a coat of paint on this and you're gonna be so friggin' rich, dude.
Plot basically revolves around overpriced real estate speculation and predatory hiring practices, which again might be a little bit more, it's definitely more cerebral than the show was known for, like finding evil sandwiches or throwing batteries at a shaved Wookiee. Like, there's weird, stupid, goofy stuff that happens in this movie.
Look what I got at the gift shop.
There's no gift shop here. You stole that from the mountain.
You know, I'm glad they finally made this a national monument.
But, like, it's an actual movie. This is, like, the most clean-cut a plot has ever been. Like I said, it's about Frylock, and he works for this Amazon company owned by Neil, who is just like, well, first of all, it's a great actor who is performing just this typical, like, average tech billionaire who is this perfect combination of insane and overprivileged. And if you can look at all the stuff that Musk has done with Twitter, or what that one idiot did with the sub recently, then none of this is actually out of place.
This is what a smart person does!
Now I definitely can't fix it. Do not speak.
He is just kind of a guy who wants to be taller. He literally that's his main goal in life. So when Frylock basically just spitballs the idea of, hey, why don't you just clone yourself and then put yourself in a new body, he immediately jumps on that.
Do it now. Blip, make him do it now.
Sorry, I don't understand.
This is kind of refreshing. The movie doesn't try to be more clever than you. That's not saying I don't love a good twist, but sometimes certain movies can't pull it off. And I think this movie was like, no, let's just go with the flow. Like, there's a point where Frylock gets jumped by a gang right outside Neil's house. And then he opens the door and then calls them street toughs.
Get out of here, street toughs!
Like Mr. Burns would. You immediately are like, okay, this is a setup. And then when you see an employee point them out and say, hey, they're anti-union thugs, which again is more topical than I thought it would be. And they attacked him to get to his gem so they could perform another side scheme other than the cloning and making Neil tall. I'm just thinking, if Frylock hadn't promised to make him taller, they probably would have just straight up killed him.
Hope you got flood insurance.
Like I said, if there's one issue with this movie, I think it lacks a lot of focus on the other characters. Again, there was 20 minutes where Meatwad wasn't even a character. They all eventually end up at Carl's. And even when Frylock realizes that, he's been tricked and he misses his old crew.
It's Frylock, bitch, and I'm going to save my real friends. Aqua Teen forever!
He ends up splitting up with them again and going with Neil and Big Neil into space. Leaving the other Aqua Teens to just kind of fend for themselves. And again, it's fun to see Carl and Shake and Meatwad play Road Warrior.
I got one bubble left. Y'all get behind me. Cover your ears. Did that do anything?
there's just, it feels like everything's a little bit disconnected. By the way, there's this one part where I thought Neil was going to actually have a change of heart, but he doesn't, which is actually both a testimony to this guy's acting. He's Peter Sherifonowitz. Okay, he's a great character actor. Does a bunch of great stuff. He was Big Daddy in Sing. He was like the gun chef in John Wick 2. And he was the Tick in the 2016 series. Again, real testament to how good of acting he does. And also just like how real life sociopaths can manipulate and act around people, aligning themselves with whoever will give them what they want at any given time.
That's not who I am. You know me, Neil. I'm you. And together, we can join forces and build a better company here.
No. Too much water under the bridge that you would have thrown me off of.
And just because I appreciate the storytelling doesn't mean I admire the character. Like, the movie gives him this big, like, triumphant fight scene against the Mooninites, where he, like, masters the skills he was trying to learn earlier. And that's supposed to be, like, a big win for him? And I'm like, why would you think I would want that?
Come on, gang. Let's roll up our sleeves.
The next character I want to talk about is Elmer, played by another great character actor, Paul Walter Hauser.
Sentient French fried potatoes? You're floating. How?
Oh, okay, easy now.
Is this jewel decorative or does it serve practical purposes?
Okay, down, boy.
Elmer is in charge of R&D at Neil's company, and everything is very surface level with Neil. He is very sensitive and emotional.
I can do everything he does, except for float and the eye lasers, and also he's a little smarter than me, and he's made of potatoes, but other than that, we're the same.
He is also willing to turn on anyone at the drop of a hat.
But I helped you. I betrayed my best friend.
He's also obsessed with plants, hence the title. By the way, with a title like Plantasm, I was expecting something, spookier, like, ghost plants or whatever. They're just mutant plants that grow out of, like, recyclable cardboard boxes. Which I will say, they have a lot of great designs in this movie. Especially the bodyguards.
Security!
And of course your plants too.
I also like how blunt Elmer is. Like, after he gets fired and plans to become a giant plant monster, he says like 100 plant puns in a row.
I see we have a little turf war.
One thing I have to say about a drawback of this movie is just the lack of staple characters that were in the show. Like, Dr. Weird doesn't show up. I was expecting him to kind of like be a big reveal. The Plutonians don't show up either. Just a lot of cool characters I think they could have used. We do see Willie Nelson in the background. Well, not the Willie Nelson. We do see the return of the Mooninites, and they do some cool stuff with the Mooninites. Aside from being a big boss fight at the end of the movie, they also talk directly to the audience.
Okay, this isn't very interesting.
Yeah, this part isn't any good.
So, we'll fast forward through this boring part so you don't have to suffer through it.
We're doing you a favor.
It's actually interesting the way that they mess with the flow of the movie. Remember how I said that this actually feels like a actual coherent story? Well, the Mooninites play with the film and jump around in the timeline to make it feel more like the show. Which is, I could see how that would backfire for a lot of people. I found it just kind of in character. And it was really nice to see all these characters again. It does feel a little bit different from the OG Aquaforce, but maybe like a revival series? I don't know. And Warner Brothers is currently on fire, so who knows what they could try to actually throw at the wall.
You just wasted $3.
No, it's $19.99.
What? For this?
Robbery!
No. This is nothing but a pathetic cash grab. Theaters rejected it.